1950 in darkest Mississippi, in the bad old days. And we lived in the country, in a county that was 70% black, Noxubee County, Mississippi, almost in Alabama. White people, of course, owned everything. And my family being white, as you might notice, we're on the wrong side of that particular war. It took me a long time to find my way out of Mississippi. Very long time. The thing that took me out ultimately was the saxophone. He came to my house, knocked on my door, reached inside, grabbed me by the throat, dragged me out. And also books. And honestly, also television. Billy Chaffee, my colleague and friend and musical brother, was born a year before I was in Albany, New York. And he sort of lived the complementary life, you might say, to mine, in that he too, at an early age, became a musician. At some point, I took a different route and became a writer. Went to universities and went that direction. Billy took music by the horns and went that direction. I never could stop music. It stayed with me, always. I felt I owed it something. Because in fact, as I said, it is the thing that came to that house in Mississippi and brought me out, took me somewhere. Billy, on the other hand, traveling all over the world with Chuck Berry and with the Pointer Sisters and with Bo Diddley and with lots and lots of other people whose names you know, never stopped reading books. He always had a book with him. When he went to hotels in Brazil with Chuck Berry or wherever it might be, he was always reading. He was a writer. He was a writer for Cream magazine and a lot of other rock magazines. And eventually, via circuitous routes, we ended up in Phoenix, Arizona, which is kind of over here, I suppose. I went there 6 years ago. Billy was already there, and as Walt tells you, he ended up in a class, a writing class, because he came back to Phoenix in part to pursue, at a very, very advanced age, I might add, a university degree. Having the same hunger that I had for that particular moment. I still had him hunger for music and was still playing music. He was in a class that my now ex-wife was teaching, and she came home one day and said, "You gotta read this guy in my class. He's about your age. He's got fascinating stories." Billy came over to my office. We started a conversation which has not yet stopped. That conversation we now call Americamera. And part of what the conversation is about, it's a kind of call and response, like the thing we just did with the harmonica and the guitar. It's a negotiation between song lyrics and music on the one hand, and the kind of page-based poetry that I tend to write on the other. The question being, when did these things part company? Because in the beginning they were the same thing. All poets, a long time ago, were singers. They were all musicians. And at some point, the culture took them apart. And now a lot of poets will say, well, song lyrics, that's not really poetry, that's verse. Well, what do you mean by that? Of course it's poetry, for heaven's sakes. So what we do, what Americamera ends up being, is an act of songwriting that is partly an act of translating poems back toward music. So that I take bits and pieces of poems of mine, craft a lyric out of them, take them to Billy, who's a seasoned songwriter. We sit around and negotiate over this, and eventually come out with a song which has traces of the poem in it, but it's something different. It's a translation, so to speak. And what we're going to present to you tonight is partly some of those translations, so to speak, some of the songs that we've written, and also some of the music contextualizes this activity, because at the beginning we agreed on something. A lot of poets get into the songwriting area, and when they do it, they tend to either write sort of bad country western music, or they screw around with jazz. You know, that's all fine. But we thought, well, we'll do something different. We're going to actually use the core of the American music tradition, which comes out of the blues, up through jazz, up through rock and roll, up through every kind of music, really. These different designations people give to the music we feel, both of us feel, are really false. It's all one music. It's all the music that we can call, if you like, Americana, and hence Americana. Something old.
I got a bird that whistles. Lord, I got a bird that sings. I got a bird, you know, she whistles, baby. Lord, I got a bird that sings. Oh, but if I don't have a chorino, sure don't mean a thing. Chorino, chorino. Walk out where you been so long. Chorino, my chorino. Lord, where you been so long. I ain't had no love, baby, honey, since you've been gone. Oh, you know I'd walk around the world on the bottom of the sea. Lord, I'd walk around the world, yes I would. On the bottom of the sea, honey. Standing next to me. One time, you know, I got a bird that whistles. Hey, I got a bird that sings. I got a bird, you know, she whistles, yeah. Lord, I got a bird that sings. But if I don't have a chorino, sure don't mean a thing. Chorino, chorino. Chorino, chorino. No, if I don't have chorino, sure don't mean a thing.